Good morning and welcome back to the vlog. This video is going to be a review of this Canyon Grail CF-SL carbon gravel bike, which I've been using for the last couple of months, and I've been able to really give it a good run for its money and test it in all kinds of conditions, including Vietnam. The first question to answer before I dive into the specifics of this bike is, why do I have a gravel bike in the first place? And the answer to that is predominantly the fact that it was winter. I didn't have a bike to see me through the winter months, but mostly because... It's alright, you go first, mate, it's all good. As I was saying, the reason why I have a gravel bike, mostly because it is the most versatile of all bikes. You can really do anything with it. And I did test it out on all sorts of terrains. It opened up a whole new range of options of rides that I can go on. I could go down the towpath, and it was really fun, having ridden a road bike for so many years, to be able to suddenly do all these different types of rides. But obviously the main reason was because we had Vietnam, which was a 2,500 kilometer trip from the north to the south. It was definitely the bike to see me through that challenge. So the Grail is Canyon's first attempt at a gravel bike. The feature of this bike that stands out the most is obviously the double bar. Now Canyon call this the hover bar, and the idea is basically that you have two levels. The first with a bit more compliance, so that when you're going over a bit of rough ground, it has a bit of flex in it, and it takes out those lumps and bumps so that you don't feel that build up of fatigue in your shoulders and in your arms. And then the lower bar is for when you want a bit more of a rigid ride and you need a bit more control over the terrain that you're riding. For me, in practice, I found it worked really well. The first time I saw it, I looked at it and I thought, my goodness, look at the state of that. But honestly, aesthetically, it's really grown on me. And practically also, I really do think it does work. It adds that little bit of suspension, if you like, in the front end, and it does take out a few of those blows. So obviously I was doing a fair amount of bike packing with this double bar setup. Now the handlebars do sometimes get in the way in some circumstances. I was using an Apidura front bar bag. I found that attaching it to the bottom bar worked the best, but the clearance between the tyre and the bottom bar is not actually that much, so I found myself continuously having to strap the bag up to the bar so that I did get that clearance there. The last thing to add with those bars is, because of the kind of teardrop shape that they are, the flat profile, you can't use your standard Garmin mounts and your lights and all of the adapters that you might have for all of your gadgets. So it would be a case of either using the elastic ones, the pull around ones that don't matter with the shape, or just adjusting to that system, but it's just something worth taking note of. So the tyre choice, this bike is running the STRAVA G1s, set up as tubeless. Now I know tubeless gets a lot of slack, but honestly, for the type of riding that I've been doing, they were absolutely perfect. In the whole Vietnam trip, I only had 2 punctures. I reckon these tyres probably sealed about 10 times and saved me an awful lot of faff. They also have the perfect amount of grip for a bit of off-road, but not too much so that you can't keep up with your mates on road bikes.
You gotta pump it up, man. You gotta pump it up.
Man, to be fair, we reached what? Over 3 weeks.
You've had no punches.
0 punches.
Yeah.
Plus, the town sidewalls look top notch. So running SRAM hydraulic gears was a first for me on this bike. The shifters themselves are a little bit more bulky than the Shimano counterparts, but I did feel with the gears itself, I've got a 42 chainring up the front and 1142 on the cassette at the back. For bike packing, it was ideal. It meant that I had all the gears that I needed to, especially when you're going slow uphill. But I did find, however, when I got rid of all those luggage and got back and tried to use it as more of a road bike, I did run out of gears. It was slightly frustrating running out of gears at 25 miles an hour. I guess the way around that is by putting a slightly bigger chainring on the front. The disc brakes themselves, really impressed. For bike packing especially, that extra braking power was much needed with all that extra weight. And I had no experience of brake rubbing whatsoever, which can be a problem with disc brakes. The seat post is a bit of an interesting design with a split down the middle to offer some compliance, and that really does add in a bit of comfort in the rear end. So the axle through bolts, obviously it's a different system. They've got rid of the quick release with these hydraulic systems. The only problem that I would say is that when you do take the rear wheel out, sometimes lining the through axle back up with the rear wheel can often be quite difficult, and there's certainly a knack to it, which takes a bit of time to get the hang of. Now the spec in terms of weight for this bike, it's a gravel bike. They are slightly heavier. You're never going to get one that is quite as light as a road bike. So a medium comes in at 8.5 kilograms, which I feel like is a pretty competitive weight, and it certainly doesn't slow you down as much as you might think it would being a gravel bike. So overall, my thoughts on the bike is I just don't want to give it back. It's really opened the doors for me in terms of what riding is possible, and I've just absolutely loved using it for the last couple of months. So if you've never ridden a gravel bike before, if you do get the opportunity, I would 100% recommend it. Especially if you're just after maybe one bike and you can't afford a road bike and a mountain bike and all these different ones. A gravel bike basically ticks all the right boxes, and you're not going to be disappointed. So in terms of the range of the Grail bikes themselves, I had a CF, which sits bang in the middle. There is an SLX, which is the top of the range version with a slightly more lightweight frame, which if you're racing, I can imagine that one would be really good. But from what I needed, the CF was perfect. At the bottom of the range, however, there's an AL, which is obviously an aluminium version, which doesn't have the double bar, as I said earlier, and is a slightly more competitively priced and durable piece of kit. I really want to give that one a go actually and see how that compares. It's also worth mentioning that they do a full women's range with different colours. And the new colourway for 2020 looks really, really nice. A really beautiful blue, which I will show you here because I went to Canyon HQ and I got a little clip of it. So tell me what you guys think of that colourway. So that's it from the basement here in London. The next time you see me, it's going to be in Calpe. Hopefully we're going to have some sunny miles and some good weather now that a storm has passed through. And that's pretty much it. So thanks for watching, guys. If you enjoyed this video, drop me a thumbs up. And tell me what you think about this bike. Do you like it? Would you buy it? See you on the next one. Ciao.